Well, this video is entitled Almost as Bad as Psychotronic Evil or Psychotronic Pollution. I did an experiment to follow up on my hypothesis that I described in the prior video of this pair. And I came to the conclusion that either the best or the only benefit of the 5 different choices available to me is when you use this technique in a conjunction with while you are also grounding your body to the earth. And it took me a little bit further in time for me to figure out why. And after sleeping through the night with this kind of arrangement connected to my earthing bed sheet, I realized why. Marty Zucker, I love him, but we do disagree on one point. He feels that earthing to the earth, grounding the body to the earth through the electrical house wiring neutral is okay. It's good enough. All of the scientific data proves it. Yet his wife was a very delicate, sensitive person, and she died of heart failure. She even had to have a pacemaker put in to her heart to keep it going. And I have a sensitive heart because I have a sensitive electrical system. I'm sensitive like a dowser is sensitive. I'm quite sensitive, and I know this because I was in an isolated condition for about 2 years up in the forest of southern state of Washington. And in that valley, we were isolated so well that I got no cell phone reception on my carrier. Some people did, because there was a cell phone tower in town, but we were outside of town and we were blocked by the hills, the mountains. So it was very poor reception. So I had to use Skype. It was the only way for me to get a phone connection to the outside world, was to use the Wi-Fi in my ski chalet cabin that I was renting. Well, I learned from my experiments, my bionic experiments of various types, to create even greater sensitivity. And the use of Leon Ernest Eamon's biocircuit helped reawaken this electrical sensitivity, my awareness to it, and enhance it. But it had certain consequences, especially when I boosted that circuit with Eric Dollar's analog computer in LMD mode, a 3-daisy chain module that I learned how to connect to the body. And there was a danger I learned about capacitors. You cannot, I made a glass plate with aluminum foil capacitor that I connected across the heart from connecting one plate to one arm, one wrist, and the other wrist to the other plate, and that weakened my heartbeat. So capacitors are powerful, but I also learned that when you ground your earthing sleep arrangement to the earth nearby where the mains of your house circuitry grounds itself, it grounds its house neutral and its house ground to the meter, the point in the earth right directly below where the meter is. If you ground yourself within a matter of just a couple of feet from there, you get the disturbance of the AC field. And so I had to ground several yards, about 75 yards away. I strung my grounding wire from my earthing bedsheet through, or I propped it up by the limbs of trees so that I could run it across way above, so no elk, was it, that we had up there, or a human could accidentally run into the wire. So I had it way overhead, and then finally at the tree, I grounded actually through the tree to the earth. That was my grounding rod. But I had to be 75 yards away from any building, including my own, to minimize the polluting effect of the AC field that we ground into the earth. Well, there's a lot of dirty electricity too on the line. It's not just a clean AC sine wave. It's clean, relatively speaking, good enough for our equipment, but there is a lot of electrical dirt, so to speak, in that line. And then there's a lot of other stuff I suspect as well that's happening in the earth that's artificially made by man. In any case, well, all the trees. That's right. We send it out into the atmosphere, all of our radio broadcasts, and then the trees act as aerials and they pick up on it and send it into the earth. So we have a lot of dirty signals traveling through the earth. Well, what this D-cell concept does, it may not have to be a D-cell to be effective. It may just have to be um, a DC source, regardless of whether it has to be a dry cell or a wet cell battery versus, not using a wet cell. I used a 1.5 AA battery and I connected it to my grounding apparatus because I found among all the choices that was the best. Do I use the dry cell by itself apart from grounding? Do I use it with? Do I use only the dry cell, or do I use the earthing alone? Or do I consider a fifth choice that all of it's mishigas, it's all nonsense? Well, the two combined worked the best because the arrangement I have at the moment when I ground myself is, although it's away from the house mains of the building that I'm in by quite a distance, by several yards, it's still, I'm living in the city, and there's a greater density of activity, of electrical activity being pumped into the earth of man-made consequence, and it creates a dirty field. So even though I'm not using the house line, the house neutral, I still get some dirt, some electrical smog, shall we say, and it weakens the heart. Anytime you do something electrical that's messy, or messy is one example, besides running a capacitor across your heart. Anytime you run dirty electricity through the body, it weakens the heartbeat. And that, of course, shortens your lifespan and makes you more prone to a stroke. And all because you take the trouble to ground yourself. Well, most people don't enhance the dirty electricity by grounding. They are not grounded, and so whatever effect they get acting as a aerial of their own, picking up on what is transmitted through the air, is quite minor in terms of intensity, although they don't get the benefit of grounding their bodies. So it's a mixed bag wanting to ground in today's society, because you enhance the smog that you connect to, because you make a direct connection to the earth, which has a lot of smog, quite intense. Well, this is how you suppress it, because a DC source is a voltage regulator. It suppresses AC, it suppresses triangular waves, it suppresses square waves. Any kind of wave you can imagine, it suppresses it, because it flattens it out. Now, it'll alter the voltage characteristic or the voltage value that you're getting when you connect to the earth. But actually, so in this example, we want to use, the same thing, the lowest voltage that you can use. And I can see why a larger dry cell would be better, because it would have a greater mass of amp hours to influence, to wipe out those that smog, that electrical smog that we get when we connect ourselves to the earth. But even a little AA does a lot of good. It really helped me sleep better, and it shows that my heart is not going to be strained. So I really am doing this to myself. It's not evil in the sense of hatred and jealousy. That's there anyway. But I would imagine it makes it easier for me to connect to all those evil influences when my heart is already in a weakened condition from connecting to the smog that exists, the electrical smog that exists in the earth when I ground myself, when I sleep. So this helps wipe that out by flattening out the voltage of the earth, so that even the beneficial signals of the earth, the natural signals, are no longer, coming at me. So now I just get just the fact that I'm grounded to the earth and nothing more. And that's probably the best alternative to trying to be natural and not forgiving. What's the word? I guess blindly, naively thinking that the Earth is fine all by itself, which is the way Marty Zucker wants to believe it to be. Unfortunately, we have a lot of pollution and it messes things up. So connecting the positive pole of a dry cell battery to your psychotronic biocircuit, namely your body, is a good idea, because now you don't get any of the smog. So it's really a question of electrical smog. What do we do about it? It's there. And if you have a sensitive electrical system, electrical bionic system, namely your body, it's going to affect your heartbeat. And it's going to impact how well you live a nice long life and not die of a stroke prematurely. So that's a result of my experiment. And so now I understand why I was supposed to learn about this and apply it, particularly to when I am grounding myself, particularly under those circumstances. It really does help a tremendous amount. So there you go. That's what I do when I earth myself, when I ground myself to the earth. I add the positive pole of a dry cell battery. So I hope you found this amusing or entertaining or educational, because I sure did. Very educational.